Welcome, everyone, to the return of the Racist War and Everything. We are on episode 248. We're coming to you just in time for the resumption of Parliament, the first parliamentary sitting since the May election, and the first sitting where Labor are returned with quite a thumping majority. So it'll be an interesting Parliament to watch. I'm Fenian, and of course we've got Nolsey here. Welcome, Nolsey. Keeping dry?
Yep, trying to.
And Nolsey was just telling me, actually, he recently interviewed Stephen Wells. So is that up on Peng at the moment?
Yes, it is.
Cool.
Just went over his time in prison, his treatment, what he's been up to since, what he was getting at, before we met, while we were talking with each other ages ago, and after I guess I disappeared.
Okay, cool. So yeah, guys, if you want to check that out, go over to Nolsey's channel on Rumble. What do you call there? Just Michael Nolan or
Mike Nolsey. So
Mike.
Nolsey. Yeah, because Mike was already taken.
Okay, cool. So I also said that we'd only return once my novel was finished. So I'm proud to say that I haven't finished it, but I'm on the very last chapter. So I'm right there. And I thought, what the hell, Parliament's back. We really need to start doing episodes again. So I'm right at the arse end of it, only a few more pages to go. So I don't think doing the show will disrupt me too much. Plus, I've set aside some time this weekend to hopefully get the last of it done. So I'll let you know as soon as that's done. And then, of course, I'm going to go looking for publishers. So, yeah, hopefully someone can cut me a deal. Anyway, there was an election. And you can be forgiven for missing it, or maybe thinking that you had already seen it, because this was an early election, snap election, you could say. And we did cover the last Tasmanian election. That was actually only just over a year ago. That was on the 23rd of March last year. And, usually we do a standalone episode of The Racer Decides to cover those kind of elections. But this one, I didn't think there was much point, because not only was it just a repeat of what we had, it was a repeat of the result as well. So look, if you don't know, the Liberals have been in power for quite a while in Tasmania. Much of that time has been So yeah, they had to rely on the crossbench, and they're going to have to do that again. So Jeremy Rockliff has been the premier there, and he's run into a little bit of trouble since being re-elected last year. I think there's two main issues. One was the expensive ferries, a bit of a debacle there with those ferries, but also the AFL stadium. So this is the stadium that they were required to build in Hobart, and that's basically how they're getting their own team, the Tasmanian Devils, I believe they're called. They're going to be playing in the AFL, but I don't think it's till next year, if I remember correctly. It's actually 2026 or maybe even later that they're doing that. I know it's taking a while for them to get kind of fully integrated into the league. But anyway, there's been all those kind of controversies, and as a result, Labor's leader, Dean Winter, put a no confidence motion to the Parliament, and by a margin of, I believe it was just 16 to 15, the no confidence motion was passed in Jeremy Rockliff. So they had to go to an early election only about a year after the last one. And what have we actually ended up with? here. Well, it looks like. Hold on, let me just bring this up, make sure I've got these numbers correct. So it looks like the Libs are, they're currently on 14 and the ALP on 10. What were they on last time? Well, it was the same result. It was exactly the same.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what is different is that the crossbench is a bit different. Okay, so the Libs are on 14, ALP is on 10, the Greens are on 5, and then you've got 4 independents. Now, as far as I know, none of those independents are from Jackie Lambie's party, and I know that at least one of them is from one of those like anti-salmon farming people. You know, that's another issue that seems to keep popping up in Tasmania.
You do get niche environmental issues in Tasmania. I mean, that's where the Greens Party started.
Yes, it is. We're going to talk a bit about that actually later, the founding of the Greens Party and how it's changed a bit. So even though it looks like on the surface that we've basically got the same result, most commentators are predicting that the Liberals will form some form of minority government. However, in order for them to do that, they would have to actually align themselves with at least one independent who is left-leaning or is a progressive. So they have basically delivered what you'd call a progressive crossbench, with a number of independents and only 5 Greens members. So that does mean, hypothetically, let's say if the Greens got together with 3 of those independents, well, that would actually give Labor a minority government of 18 seats. So there is a chance that they could actually form government. The issue there, though, is that by convention, you're not supposed to align yourself with the party that clearly got fewer votes, because it's obvious here that Labor did get fewer votes. In fact, their popular vote and primary vote went down as compared to the last election. So if they were to do that, if they were to actually go into alliance with a progressive crossbench and form government, you could argue that would be very undemocratic, because even though they would have formed government legitimately, they received a very, very low vote, which you could say does not reflect the will of the Tasmanian people. So
yeah, no, I was just going to say, you know, the Tasmanian population are, you know, trapped youths and boomers, and at an increasing number of younger to middle-aged Asian wives. You know, like all those parties, that demographic generally is going to be conservative leaning. That would be, if they did that, it would seem as there'll be a complete affront.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of boomers who go to Tasmania to retire, and that's why I'm pretty sure that Tasmania actually soaks up more welfare payments than any other state or territory, like even more than the Northern Territory, amazingly. And historically, what I find amazing is that Tasmania always had the highest unemployment rate. Do you know now they actually have the lowest unemployment rate in the country?
How did they work
How that
that
happened,
out?
I don't know, but it did.
Is it just because the unemployed youth that used to fuck around Los Angeles and Hobart have, you know, finally actually mass fucked off to Victoria, etc.? Because Tasmania's cost of living is still, it's pretty fucking high relative to the rest of the country.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm not sure. To be honest, I really have not analysed that. But and then it's funny, here in WA, we've actually got a pretty high unemployment rate, even though usually the mining sector is what protects us from that. But no, even Tasmania are beating us in that regard now. Now, just before we leave this issue of the Tasmanian election, it's worth noting that the Jewish lobby has actually been lobbying Labor and their leader, Dean Winter, to not go into government with the Greens. Now, the Greens leader is Rosemary Woodruff, and she celebrated the progressive crossbench that was voted in. And she also said that it was going to be a very high priority for the Tasmanian Greens to fight for a free Palestine and demand the return of land to the Palestinians. Now, of course, you could say, what on earth has that got to do with Tasmanian politics? And yes, you're right. It doesn't really have anything to do with it. However, I doubt the Jewish lobby would have been very upset if Jeremy Rockcliffe showed unwavering support for Israel in his speech. Nonetheless, the Jewish lobby is making this demand. And previously, Dean Winter did say, quote, "I won't be doing any deals with the Greens." Now, how likely he would be to keep his word if he was actually given the genuine prospect of forming government, that is questionable. We all know that politicians are quite good at breaking promises. So I would definitely not say that was some kind of ironclad promise. And he did say also that he had opened the lines of communication with the crossbench. But that's not enough. If he gets the 4 independents, well, he's got 14 seats, which is exactly the same as the Liberals. So that's a deadlock. So, no, that's not good enough. Unless he does some kind of deal with the Greens, he can't form government. And obviously he knows that. So I would not be surprised if they're trying to sort something out.
And honestly, look, given enough time, you could probably talk the Australian Jewish lobbies. Well, Australian Jewish lobby, which one? You could probably talk them out of this fucking hysteria because, like, in all reality, like, what the fuck are the Greens going to be able to physically do? Like, say some things, wave some flags, cry.
Right. And I mean, it's just like, the Jewish lobby was not happy that Albanese was re-elected. But, I mean, come on. He's already given you this report on anti-Semitism that they're going to act on. He got rid of Ed Husick, the Muslim that they didn't like, and he got rid of Mark Dreyfus, the treacherous Jew that they also didn't like. So it's not like Albanese has been a huge, massive disappointment to the Jewish lobby, despite what Rabbi Shmuley might have to say about it.
He's an abomination. God, that was fucking horrific.
I just say to the ECAJ or whoever it was who made these comments, you've got nothing to worry about. Honestly, what do you think the Tasmanian government with Greens sitting in alliance is actually going to do to I mean, how many Jews are in Tasmania?
How many Jews are in Tasmania? That's a good thing.
I'd say very, very little. I mean, there's not even many Jews here in WA. They're almost exclusively in Melbourne and Sydney. So, that's where you go. So,
approximately like 300 and something odd.
We're here.
No, Tasmania. But that's in 2021, so yeah.
Yeah, so bugger all. And they're probably retired boomers as well. Who the hell's going to bother them?
I mean, like, this, basically, like, Tasmania is Australia's Boca,
Yeah. Okay, so, guys, I guess maybe the topic that you all want to hear about has to be Mark Latham and all this scandal that has broken out over him. So, give you a quick recap if you're not aware. Latham is 64 years old. He got divorced a couple of years ago. I do remember reading about that. I did not read about this new partner of his until, this scandal broke out. So this woman's name is Natalie Matthews, And I believe she's some sort of like e-commerce entrepreneur. Like she's not just a pretty face. She's actually like a very wealthy businesswoman as well. And they've been, I don't know, in a relationship for like 2 years or something like that. So she went and filed a restraining order against Latham. That apparently was mainly for, what they call coercive control, which is like emotional and financial abuse, as they say. Dare I say, uh, financial abuse simply means you don't give them access to your bank account anymore. That's actually usually
Yep.
what they mean by that. Why it would matter for this woman, considering, it sounds like she's a multimillionaire. I mean, I don't see why that would be an issue. But it did actually name some physical incidents as well. He's said to have like pushed her into the wall, thrown dishes at her, and this is the one that's got everyone talking. Apparently defecated on her during sex and would not let her clean herself up. Did you hear that one,
Yeah.
Mousy?
Well, yeah, I did. I was on Twitter, man. I saw this all live. I don't know how much of that I'm gonna believe. I don't think that's in his Rolodex.
Once I read the part about defecating, that's when I said, hold on a minute. Does this have something to do with Jews? Because usually they're the ones who think up of disgusting acts like that. And then, of course, I was reminded, well, what has Latham, before this scandal, what had been getting him into trouble the most? Well, he actually decided to take on the Jewish lobby, didn't he? He's one of the very few members of the New South Wales Parliament who is calling on Chris Minns to repeal the draconian hate speech laws that they passed recently because of the fact that it was done on false pretenses. It was based on an act of terror that was a hoax. We all know this, that the explosives found in that caravan that was supposedly going to be used to blow up synagogues, the police admitted that that was a hoax. It was completely fake. There were connections with organised crime in Sydney, but there was also a mysterious overseas orchestrator who was paying these criminals in cryptocurrency. And for some reason, the New South Wales police haven't revealed their identity. All we got was like some Arab guy. All they did was name some Arab guy who used to be in the Nomads bikie gang. That was it. And as far as I know, he was the only arrest that was made. Why hasn't anyone else been arrested over that? I mean, coming up with a fake terror plot, that sounds like a pretty serious offence to me. Yet only one guy was arrested over it. Anyway, Mark Latham has been making that very point. And ever since then, dare I say that Latham somewhat red-pilled himself in that debacle because he kind of thought, hold on, who benefits from this? Obviously, with the passing of those laws, those laws were designed to benefit the Jewish community, in this case, in particular, New South Wales. That was really it. I mean, I know that the laws are like across the board, but there was only one lobby group asking for laws like that, and that was the Jews. As far as I know, even the Muslims weren't asking for laws to quite go that far, where, now you can actually be sent to jail simply for making some kind of, racial joke, bigoted joke, homophobic joke, whatever it might be.
Yeah, Muslims just ask for fucking blasphemy laws. That's what they go for. Mostly because like a holistically racial angle doesn't work for them, but in the case of the Jewish community, it does.
Yeah, so Muslims, like, they'll say that, it should be illegal to draw a picture of Muhammad or something like that. We all remember that. With Jews, it's just like, no, you cannot say anything bad about Jews or Israel whatsoever. If you do, we want to put you in jail. That's the basics of it. Latham, I think, it took him long enough, but I think he actually finally realizes that now. Because I remember before, when he was with One Nation, he basically called Anthony Albanese an anti-Semite Corbynite. Do we remember
Yeah.
this?
It was like,
Remember when
where
everyone
the
was
fuck
going
were you
on?
getting that from?
Yeah, well, simply because of the fact that like Jeremy Corbyn and Anthony Albanese are like sort of friends. I mean, they're just kind of like friendly acquaintances, I'd say. It's not like they hang out together. I mean, they both live on opposite sides of the globe. So, but yeah, just like over that association, remember at that time, conservatives were all pointing the finger at Jeremy Corbyn, calling him like some kind of rabid Nazi anti-Semite, uh, just because he supported the Palestinian cause. And then, of course, you know, when Keir Starmer came in, he had to then go and flush out all the anti-Semitism from the British Labour Party. Unfortunately, Mark Latham was on board all of that crap, talking about anti-Semitism in the left and all of this. Now he's changed.
Deadly dumb of him.
Yeah, he's you know, he's sitting as an independent now. He's not beholden to any One Nation script, which, by the way, you know, is very much on board with calling Corbyn an anti-Semite and all that. Remember, Pauline Hanson walked into the Senate wearing a scarf made out of the Israeli flag. Remember that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh
she likes
God.
pulling little stunts like that. And also, when it came to these hate speech laws at the federal level, who voted for them? One Nation. Both senators,
Yes.
Pauline Hanson and Malcolm Roberts, both voted for those laws.
You think their party would be like, yes, more hate speech laws, you know, the stuff used to fuck with us on a consistent basis. Yeah, like that's what we want more of.
From the very beginning, from One Nation's inception back in like 96 or 7, whenever it was, they were calling for the abolition of Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act. And as far as I know, that is actually still part of their platform. Yet they still voted for the hate speech laws that went much, much further than 18C ever did. And Latham has been critical of One Nation for that, and that's good. So I'm thinking, you know, here's a guy who started out on the left. Obviously, you know, he was leader of the Labour Party. He then had a really quick transition to libertarianism because he joined the Liberal Democrats for a short period of time. And then he went to One Nation. And so that made a lot of people think, well, has Latham just done the libertarian to alt-right pipeline? Maybe he did. But he didn't fully complete it because he wasn't J-woke. Now, perhaps he is. Now that he's finally taking on the Jewish lobby and on top of that, feeling the heat from the Jewish lobby in a massive, massive way, maybe finally Latham is actually one of ours. I don't know. What do you think, Nolsey?
I'm always cynical. I'm always cynical. Let's see what happens. And honestly, if look, pull it straight. Like if he was one of us, if he did notice what the fuck was going on, do you think his ass would reach the ground before he was kicked out of Parliament?
Yeah, but that's what they're calling for now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, because look, it's not just this. They're also claiming that he made a sex tape in his parliamentary office.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, look, I still don't believe this, but interestingly, when he held a press conference on this, I think it was on Saturday, that question was put to him directly, and he didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. Now, that may have just been because of the fact that he was just sick of answering these kind of questions over and over again. I get that. That's obviously frustrating. But as far as I know, he still hasn't actually directly denied that. Something that he did confirm is that he was sexting during question time. It's not a terrible offence, I don't think. I mean, you often see MPs on their phones or their laptops kind of attending to other business. It's not like you have to just sit there like a stunned mullet the whole time and observe every little thing that's going on in Parliament. So I don't think that is, such an awful crime. The fact that an MP was doing just, something a little different during Parliament, but it's the messages. Let me just read a couple of these. So these were leaked to the Daily Telegraph. So this is what Latham wrote. Master's cock needs relief too. Very hard thinking about you. He then included emojis that included a purple eggplant and a tongue saying, haven't come in days. Lots of cock tension. Made it back for the first vote after dinner. I needed that, you're amazing. Implying that he got lucky during intermission or something.
Oh, no.
And then Natalie Matthews, one of her texts said, you are quite amazing. My dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Now, Latham said that these texts have been altered. So he's like, yes, I did send these texts, but the ones that have been published by the Daily Telegraph are not entirely accurate. So I don't know. Make of that what you will.
Didn't he
What
pull
I want to
the
know
stunt
is
when they tried to ambush him outside of his house or something like that, and he just pulls away in his car and says, the master is leaving?
he might have said that. Yeah. So part of the restraining order complaint, which I believe has been made public, Matthews said that Latham demanded that she referred to him as master. So it was one of these like, how do you call it? Like master servant, fucking weird relationships, whatever. I don't know, stuff that usually goes on in the gay community, I guess. I don't know.
Any group that has a high rate of homosexuality possibly also has a high rate of shitting on each other.
No, that's undoubtedly true. So I mean, Latham has said that, like, all he's guilty of is sexting and the fact that he has a private life, that he has a sex life, and as he put it, a very good sex life. I don't quite need that image of a 64-year-old man, but I mean, he does make a good point. It's like, okay, yeah, even politicians have private lives. We do things in the bedroom that other people do as well. Now, look, I just want to know, like, how did all of this stuff leak? Was it just the partner who was doing all of this?
I guess. I mean, when I was actually, after the interview with Wells, I was talking to him and his wife about this specifically, and his wife said, like, hey, look, you do realize this woman is also a whore. Like, she used to do like fucking, what do they call it on the self-censored YouTube short section, spicy content. She did fucking like online sex content for a while. It's like, well, she's already a whore. You mean you can fucking pay her to say fucking disgusting sexual shit. So someone's probably gotten in her back pocket and was just like, hey look, Shiksa, if you fucking bag this dude out, there's some shekels involved in it for you. Yeah, there's a photo of her, like, and obviously it's censored for the article, but she's like lifting her top up.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember she had an OnlyFans.
Yes.
And I mean, well, as we all know, there's a shitload of money to be made from OnlyFans, so that's obviously why people do it. But apparently, she is still married to like some tech billionaire or something. I know some billionaire, and like I think they're separated, but like on paper they're still married. And there was some gossip about that as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, imagine being the poor fucker who's like on paper married to this woman, and you hear about all this disgusting shit happening in the background. Imagine waking up and being like, "Oh no, I hope there isn't any new developments on this fucking story."
Yeah. Now look, a lot of this like might be true. Not the really far out stuff. Like I don't believe for a second that he shit on her, for God's sake. But what you have to ask is the timing of it. Like, okay, maybe a lot of it's true, but why has it just come out now all of a sudden? you know. And I just, for the life of me, I can't say that it has nothing to do with the fact that he has finally become J-woke, or if he hasn't, at the least, he's taking on the Jewish lobby. And he's saying that the Jewish lobby exercises too much power in New South Wales politics, and they basically were able to get legislation passed that benefits them, that is completely unfair, that is draconian, and that was passed on a false premise and should be abolished. And so that means that the Jews are going after Latham with both barrels now. I can't see it any other way.
Well, yeah, like aware of it or not, he's saying things that aren't exactly conducive to being a good guy.
No, definitely not. And I mean, he's an easy target. He's an independent. He also has a lot of people generally who don't like him because he's always been a controversial figure, right from the beginning. So there's a lot of
showing
people
up on what fucking like alt-right, I guess, back in the day show did he show up on again?
Oh yeah, he was on the Convict Report twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, twice he was on.
That was fucking interesting, man. I didn't know about that until like was it 5 or 6 years ago now? But yeah, like I heard about that, I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh shit, they're gonna fuck him up.
Yeah, no, surprisingly, because he wasn't in Parliament back then. He was just sort of like a, commentator. He was just doing media stuff, I believe, back then. And I think he might have just joined the LDP. So he wasn't really high profile back then for that to really matter. But then you also had George Christensen, who went on the Convict Report as well. And that surprisingly didn't hurt him either. So anyway, look, the other thing regarding Mark Latham is it's controversial, the fact that his portrait is still on display in the Labor Party's federal party room. So I think, as most people would know, in the party room, it's a tradition to hang the portraits of every leader that party has ever had. And of course, Mark Latham was leader, I believe, from 2003 to 2005, like roughly a year and a half. And he was the member for Werriwa. And then he quit Parliament altogether. And they went to a by-election in Werriwa. Now, the Labor Party many in the Labor Party have supported the idea of actually just removing his portrait altogether. Now, they've come up with a bit of a compromise. So they're saying, look, you can't just erase the past. Whether we like it or not, he was the leader for a while, and that needs to be acknowledged. However, they're basically going to put like an asterisk note underneath the portrait. Now, I saw Albo talking about this last night on 7:30, actually. So they're going to add language to the bottom of the portrait that says, yes, he was the leader, however, he was expelled back in 2017. That might have been actually back when he did the Convict Report.
Sounds about right.
Or thereabouts. And he's been out of the party ever since. So that's what they're going to be including in that, underneath his portrait. And Tanya Plibersek said that the only time that she ever cried during her parliamentary career was when Mark Latham was elected Labor leader. For those who don't remember, Simon Creed was the leader, but he bombed out badly. So they went to a party room vote between Mark Latham and Kim Beazley. And I believe Latham only won by like 1 or 2 votes. It was very, very narrow. And Albo likes pointing out... Beazley. Yeah, because Beazley had just lost 2 elections. That's the thing. So everyone who voted for Latham basically thought, well, what good is Beazley? He already lost twice. So Albo has been pointing out that he never voted for Latham. He seems to be very proud of that fact. he was canvassing the vote for Kim Beazley back then. Anyway, I'm sure we have not heard the last of all this scandal. And, if Mark Latham went on the convict report, maybe he should come on the racer. I might consider that, actually, reaching out to him, see if he wants to speak his part on the racer.
If we get a reply on that, I'm going to be shocked.
No, I've actually reached out to Latham before, and he never replied to me. So once he got back into Parliament, he became a lot harder to contact, I believe. Okay. Well, let's move on to foreign affairs. So Albo just wrapped up a 6-day trip of China. China is, of course, our largest trading partner. It is not our largest strategic partner, as Sky News keep pointing out. That, of course, is the United States. But look, that's coming, all right? I mean, Trump has not even been elected. He's only, just over 100 days, I believe. And, I hate to break it to Sky News, Australia is only what they call a middle power. We're only, 26 million people or something. We're about 1/3 the population of Germany, so it's not exactly like we're top priority. Anyway, Albo was accused of engaging in a bit of an indulgent trip because he did do things like walk the Great Wall of China and go to a panda zoo. But, that's what you've got to do if you go to China. You've always got to get the photo shoot with the pandas.
Yeah.
So one thing that was brought up while he was over there was, of course, their policy towards Taiwan and the South China Sea. Albo pointed out that when it comes to China, obviously they lay claim in those territories. But the United States is choosing strategic ambiguity. Now, that means that they're not going to tell you whether or not they're willing to actually attack China militarily should China launch an invasion of Taiwan. Most commentators seem to be in agreement that a land invasion of Taiwan is only a matter of time. I think I would agree.
Yeah.
China is just sort of looking for the opportune moment. And, they've already been sort of flexing their muscles in Hong Kong and also just any kind of economic pressure that they can put on either Taiwan or Hong Kong. They've done that as well. And they've brutally suppressed political opposition. So when you consider all of those things, yeah, probably a ground invasion is around the corner.
Well, it's one of the things that Xi has already said. Like the main thing that he wants the legacy of his time as leader of China to be was land returns, territorial gains, and territories that the Chinese were in some regard Chinese previously. I mean the Taiwanese, they are ethnically Han, and Hong Kong, etc. He basically wants his legacy to be land return.
Yeah, and by the way, Australia still does support what's called the One China policy. And, well, that means that, like, anything that is officially part of China now, and that includes Taiwan and Hong Kong, by the way, even though, they have a degree of autonomy, they're still part of China. And Labor's position on that has not changed. And as Albo points out, that goes as far back as Gough Whitlam, who was the first Labor leader to visit China, I believe.
Yeah, no, and well, I mean, pretty much you have to do that if you want to trade with them, because if you don't support that policy, then they literally just chuck a hissy fit with you and close you out of the market.
Yeah, and this seems to be what like Sky News don't understand, the fact that he would spend 6 days over there and prioritize China. They're our biggest trading partner, for God's sake. If we don't trade with China, economically, we are screwed. So it's no surprise that this was given priority. And when it comes to meeting uh, Trump, Albo pointed out that he's already been to the United States 5 times since he became prime minister. Trump has not yet issued a personal invitation to Australia because, like I said before, he is just busy with other things. But also, there was an interesting interview with John Bolton. We remember him, former absolute war hawk, complete neoconservative piece of shit. But anyway, he's saying that it's actually still too early for such a meeting to take place. And the reason why is because all of the detail regarding AUKUS has not been finalized. And he actually went so far as to say that if Albo were to go and meet Trump now, it would be possible that AUKUS could be ripped up because there's too many areas of disagreement. So there's another reason why Albo might be biding his time when it comes to actually having a meeting with Trump. It's not because he's afraid of meeting Donald Trump. That was actually something that John Howard said the other day. Another just ridiculous comment. But yeah, I just find they're so nitpicky at Sky News. Like literally anything that they can find to attack Albo over, they'll go for it. All right.
Well, they are retardedly partisan news sources, so
Yeah. Now, oh yeah, one last thing on China I was going to say was that when Albo got back, he was saying that Australia could learn from China's fast rail network and centrally planned cities. Oh no. Is
oh
this
god,
is this the old socialist Albo, like the socialist student days Albo? Is he coming back because he's saying that China has some centrally planned cities that actually function well? Uh, Nolsey's just dropped out. Says device is not connected, so I'll just keep going. Oh, there he is. You back?
yep.
Okay. So
Yeah, like this was a topic going around Twitter for a while. It's people posting these videos like, "Oh, China's living in the year 20, fucking 3000," and it's just like, and then people are going like, no, not really. Like fucking strapping neon lights and LED panels to buildings isn't living in the future. China has a genuine problem where their need for infrastructure is scaling beyond their ability to maintain existing and new infrastructure. It's like China's having fucking problems. Like we didn't just go through an entire crisis of them basically committing like government-backed project fraud and banking fraud, just to turn around and say, well, they're doing well, or well, they're doing great.
yeah, I don't think anyone's saying that what China is doing is perfect, but in terms of their urban infrastructure, I think it's fairly impressive, and yes, it is centrally planned. Um, there's an author, God, what's his name? James Greger, I think, who basically argues that China is a fascist state now, in that the way it runs its economy actually quite resembles fascist Italy. It's an interesting theory
Yeah,
to take. I'm not sure if I
I mean,
entirely agree with it.
you
But
could kind of like you could say that just because like the economic underpinnings of Mussolini's fascist party whereas basically his socialist start, because he started off as a socialist.
he
So
did.
he dragged a lot of the policies that he had from that day. So yeah.
Well, I mean, he supported a system of corporatism, and that doesn't
Yes,
mean like corporations like a multinational corporation. When he talked about a corporation, he meant
the
a
body, corpo.
yeah, yeah, that represented a certain sector of the economy. So, for example, the trade union movement could be considered a corporation, and all of those different corporations that resembled different sectors of the economy would sit down together to plan the economy together. So that included business groups, worker groups, you know, um, politicians, obviously, bureaucrats, everyone in the mix. And that is actually sort of how China do it. So
Yep.
maybe not the unions. I don't think they've really got any kind of union movement, but the other sectors of the economy, all come together. Um, all right. Now, so returning to the federal parliament. Now, as I said, Parliament has resumed, and the Speaker has a bit of a task on his hand because he's going to have a hell of a lot more members on his right now. That is the government, Labor, because they've got such a convincing majority now. So it'll be interesting to see the tactics that he'll have to roll out to keep this new Parliament under control. But anyway, the Greens, they're trying to put pressure on Albanese to push for things that, say, would ordinarily be seen as radical. Now, I don't know why the Greens think they're in a position to do this, considering they actually bombed out. I think they only got one member of the lower house in the end, even though they were aiming for like five. And they even lost Adam Bant. So the seat of Melbourne went back to Labor after many years. But anyway, one of these more radical changes that they're pushing for is implementing a Human Rights Act. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that would mean, like what form this would take exactly, because remember, when it comes to rights acts, usually you're talking about an amendment to the Constitution. Like the Bill of Rights in America, that's an amendment. Obviously, because you've got the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, etc. And that means that it's in the hands of the courts after that. Now, I don't think this has any chance. For one thing, like I said, it would require a constitutional amendment if you were to do it the proper way, which means it would have to go to referendum. But even if you were just to legislate it, it's going to upset religious groups because, all right, on the face of it, a Human Rights Act, that sounds like something that just about anyone could get behind. But what do the Greens mean by human rights? Well, they mean that if you're a homosexual, you can't be told that you can't work at a Catholic school, for example. Okay, that's what they refer to as a human right. And that any kind of organization has no right whatsoever to discriminate on demographics such
Any
as,
grounds?
gender, sexuality, political persuasion, whatever it might be. That's what
And
the
then
Greens
and
mean.
these days we also see like them talking about the right to bum your kids, but that's one of those read between the lines ones.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if you deny your transgender child's right to transition or something as well, like they consider that to be a human right. For a 9-year-old to go on hormone blockers, that to them is a human right nowadays. So, you've always got to question the language that's been used. Yes, protecting human rights sounds like such a great thing that we're all in favor of, but, what do they really mean? But look, I don't think they're going to listen to them. They need to maybe listen to the Greens in Tasmania, but there's absolutely no need to be listening to them at the federal level, not in the lower house anyway. They do, unfortunately, still have quite a few senators in the federal parliament. You've got the same old sour hag faces like Sarah Hanson Young to deal with. But the way they're going to throw their weight around mostly, I think, is going to be on environmental policy. In particular, speeding up the transition to net zero, which we'll talk about soon. All right, let's talk about anti-Semitism and the whole Israel-Gaza conflict. Now, we did the Racer Live for 2 weeks. If you guys wanted to check that out, just go to theracer.biz if you want all the links. We did go through the report that was issued by the Special Envoy for Anti-Semitism, and that envoy is Gillian Siegel. She's a Jewish lawyer who has been very active in Jewish lobbying in Australia for many years. Yep. Now, there were actually recently calls for her to resign. The reason why is because in her current role as envoy, she's supposed to be completely politically neutral. She's not supposed to be partisan whatsoever. But it turned out that her husband recently made a donation of $50,000 to Advance. Do we remember Advance? They're basically the conservative version of GetUp. They're a lobby group that resembles the conservative side of politics in Australia. And, you know, they're more of the hard right of Australian conservatism, I guess you could say. And it's that hard right of Australian conservatism that is the most ardently Zionist. So when I read that this guy gave them 50 grand, I was not surprised whatsoever. But anyway, Gillian Siegel said that she had no involvement whatsoever in her husband's donation. No one would tolerate or accept my husband dictating my politics, and I certainly won't dictate his. I have had no involvement in his donations, nor will I. So, as far as she's concerned, she's still maintaining political neutrality because the donation didn't have anything to do with her. Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, has said that the government is standing by her, and I'm sure they will. I don't think she's going to go anywhere. So, anyway, the report made a list of recommendations, many of which have been seen as extreme. And yeah, go listen to our last Race Alive if you want to get the details on that. We actually went through each recommendation point by point. So I'll tell you like the main ones. One is stripping universities of funding should they be too critical of Israel. Another one was deporting students under the Migration Act, having their visas cancelled. Which you can do under a certain section, I forget what it is, but there's different ways you can fail the character test. And if you fail the character test, that is grounds to have your visa cancelled and then get sent back. So, you know, this was a big thing, especially with Arabic Muslim students who are here on student visas. You know, basically they didn't like the essays that a lot of these students were writing, and they didn't like the fact that they were participating in student protests and encampments on university campuses. So they want them out. Now, Jason Clare, who is the education minister, so obviously, you know, he would be the one in charge of implementing those particular policies that I just mentioned. He's saying that he is not going to act on any of those recommendations until the opposite report, the Islamophobia report, is handed down. Now, some of us might forget that when Albo announced an anti-Semitism envoy, he also had one for Islamophobia. And yes, this was to do, I've no doubt, with appeasing the Muslim vote. which, yes, does mainly vote Labor, so they had to do that. But as it was pointed out by the Muslim lobby, the amount of hate crimes that had been inflicted on Muslims in Australia was basically the same as Jews, and one could even argue was more than Jews, considering the fact that the Jewish hate crimes were all fake, or at least a hell of a lot of them were. And I don't just mean the caravan hoax. I mean a lot of that graffiti and vandalism that was going on, where they would spell Israel incorrectly, you know? I mean, a motivated anti-Semite knows how to spell Israel, okay? A dumbass criminal being paid via crypto, he's the one far less likely to know how to spell Israel. But anyway, Sky News and the conservative side of politics have jumped all over this, saying that the recommendations in Gillian Siegel's report need to be implemented now. They need to be implemented yesterday, basically, according to Julian Leeser, who is now the highest-ranking Jewish politician in the country ever since Mark Dreyfus was sent to the backbench. Julian Leeser, remember, was on the backbench because he supported the Voice to Parliament, but the official line of the Liberals was that they did not. But he has since been elevated back to the front bench. And so he's Jew number one now. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Jew number one. Sorry, you just fucking caught me off guard with that.
Oh. Yeah, no, that was actually how it was described in The Australian. So, there you go.
I don't know, maybe that position on The Voice might become more popular again, considering how pissed off people are about these returning to Parliament speeches they were just given out.
Right. Okay, so look, here's what Julian Leeser said. He said, in the wake of ongoing firebombings, threats, and anti-Semitic abuse directed at businesses, creatives, and students on university campuses, it beggars belief that the government refuses to act until it receives a report unrelated to anti-Semitism. Well, it depends, because if you're talking about responses to criminal threats, well, they already do that. By the way, one of the examples that he mentions there, he was just talking about a restaurant where there was some pro-Israeli people in there, and some pro-Palestine protesters basically went in and interrupted their dinner. That was it. But that was viewed as some ferocious act of anti-Semitism. In regards to the other stuff, well, look, there was that firebombing on the synagogue, what they call a firebombing. They did arrest an Iranian guy. That makes me think, okay, maybe that was real because of the fact that they made an arrest so quickly. Because usually with an attack like that, you do make an arrest, pretty quickly. Why is it with the Adas synagogue one, the one that they've made millions of dollars off in insurance fraud and donations and government grants, why is it there where the guy burnt his hand on the door? Why hasn't a single arrest been made for that one?
Oh, God. We need to make sure the insurance covers all these valuables that were left inside. And because I had to run and I burnt my hand on the door. Give me $30 million on top of everything else.
Yeah. But, what I absolutely guarantee is that, let's say there's another one of these firebombings or whatever. You know who will never, ever be caught committing these acts? White nationalists. Even though we're always told about the dangerous rise of the extreme right in Australia, by that they mean that we offer threats of violence and property damage. But they can't seem to actually ping us on anything. Strange that. Anytime they do actually catch someone doing any of this stuff, it's always a Muslim. every bloody time.
I'm not even fucking joking. The Victorian socialists have a bigger fucking crime rap or associated to their political
Of
movement
course
than
they
we
do.
do.
Of course they do, man. Man, they do acts of vandalism all the time. They actually, well, not that specific group you're talking about, but I know that anti-fascists were like circulating a video where they trashed the venue of some place that was gonna, they were just gonna hold a meeting for like that Workers Alliance group. I forget what they're called now.
Mm.
I can't remember the name of them, but they actually like showed them like smashing the glass, breaking in, and like destroying property. And they like proudly put it out there on Telegram and everything, saying, "Hey, look, we did this." You know. So yes, of course they've got a rap sheet, and our rap sheet is nothing. Our rap sheet is like self-defense when they like convict us of assault when we've actually just been defending ourselves, like with Thomas Sewell and that security guard, for example. That's all they can ever get us on.
They couldn't even get fucking Tom on that. Couldn't even get him on that.
Well, they did convict him in the end, but it was bullshit. Because, I mean, the camera footage is out there. It's publicly available. You can see that the security guard clearly was the one who initiated the assault, and then Tom fought him off. That's all it was.
I think one of the other things that Tom went to court to was interesting because it's happened like a similar time period with that march in the Grampians, and he literally came out in court that it was like, yes, these groups all conspired together, and they kind of gave themselves away because they started posting about it in the exact wrong order.
Right. Oh God. Okay. Anyway, just one other story on this, and that is that Albo has actually taken a hard line here, although it's only rhetoric, in terms of the latest killings in Palestine of those seeking aid. This is not the first, the second, or third time. This is, we've lost count of how many times this happens, where you've actually got an aid truck distributing food and medicine. You've got desperate people trying to get those goods, and the IDF open fires on them. So this was just the latest example of that. Albanese described it as completely indefensible. He said Israel is losing support by its own actions, and that some of its actions are completely indefensible. And he has renewed his calls for a ceasefire. And that's another thing that apparently is anti-Semitic. Not giving Jews free rein to murder civilians in line to gather food and medicine. Okay. Let's move on to the economy now. So, a little bit of an embarrassment for Jim Chalmers. An official Treasury document was leaked. Now, apparently it was sent in error by a Treasury official. I'm assuming that official is probably sacked now. But Jim Chalmers did say that he's pretty relaxed about that because the details that were released were not exactly embarrassing. They more or less told us what we were expecting. So here's, I guess, what you could say was the most embarrassing part of it. And that is Labor, if you remember, they currently have a target of building 1.2 million new homes within 5 years. Well, guess what? This Treasury paper said that they won't meet that.
Wow.
So I don't think that surprised anyone. Everyone knows that housing targets will not be met. And it's not to do with our speed in which we build them. It's to do with how many people we let in, how many people occupy them. And, well, actually, it does actually somewhat have to do with the speed we build them because despite the fact we have record amounts of people flooding into the country, we still somehow don't manage to get many people who are skilled in trades and can, work on these construction sites to build these homes. Even though Chris Minns like to tell us, like, the reason we need immigration is to import workers to build those homes. Well, funny, with all the people we bring in, we can't
I
even do
want
that.
I want to run Bong Shop and shit up Domino's Pizza franchise.
Yeah, we have plenty of that and plenty of Uber drivers. Plenty of sick brown people putting spy cameras in change rooms and that kind of thing. But we don't get any to actually build our houses. Now, it also mentioned that Labor should consider tax hikes and spending cuts, both of which generally are unpopular. Now, I think, surprisingly, Labor seem like they're still going to go ahead on this tax on like unrealized superannuation assets. As far as I know, that is still on the books. So I guess I have to say I was wrong on that one, because I actually predicted that Labor would axe that. I thought it was going to prove too unpopular. And also, just in terms of projected revenue, it didn't seem like it was going to be that much anyway. So it was just sort of like an inconvenient tax that wasn't going to reap them many benefits. So, but looks like I was wrong on that. It looks like that's going to that is still actually on the table. Oh yes, and the other bit of economic news is that Australia's unemployment rate actually went up. So if we go from the last quarter, which was in May, oh no, sorry, this is going from May to June. So in May, it was 4.1%. In June, it actually got to 4.3%. Now that's a big movement in only a month. 0.2%, that's big in only a month. That is a huge amount of people who would have lost jobs. So the number of officially unemployed people in June jumped up by 33,600. So yeah, that's a lot of jobs to lose in only a month. And I think that now the unemployment rate is actually kind of reflecting the real rate, because as we know, it's often very misleading.
It's easy to fuck with. People stop looking for jobs, and then that fucking takes them off the list.
Right.
People, disqualify themselves from being on the list. And there's a whole bunch of ways you can fudge it.
If you do 1 hour of work a fortnight, you're recorded as employed. So that should give you an idea of how you can manipulate it. I wish they would, when they report these figures, I wish they would emphasize the underemployment rate. That actually tells you a lot more than the unemployment rate does.
I think if we actually had a completely top to bottom look at the Australian economy and people were actually showed about that, it would cause a decent amount of panic, assuming that people comprehended what they were shown.
Yeah, and I mean, look, that also just suggests that we've got too many people here competing for the same jobs. And at the same time, we still don't have enough people working in trades to build houses. What a system. Okay, so let's actually talk specifically about housing now. So this was something else that was leaked in that Treasury document. In terms of how Labor is planning to deal with increased rent prices, well, they're actually just considering a rent supplement. So, we've already got this. Like, if you're on Centrelink, you can get rent assistance. But Labor are actually talking about more than that now. They're even talking about people who are not on Centrelink, that they may be given a supplement to help them pay for the weekly rent. Now, this is an awful idea. This is a terrible fucking idea. Because what does that actually do?
All over again.
Yes, it's going to be just like what we do with childcare. The endless subsidies and the endless increases to the subsidies in childcare. It's going to put prices up. Just like when you help pay for a deposit on a house, which was like the Labor's plan. And then you've got the Liberals' plan, which is you can use your superannuation to put a deposit on your house. All of that stuff is demand side. You're driving increased demand. And what happens when you increase demand but supply stays the same? Prices go up. You don't need a degree in economics to know this stuff. So this is another just fucking retarded idea. But unfortunately, it could prove popular because a lot of the time people just don't see it that way. They just think, oh, okay, rental subsidy, I'm renting, therefore that's good because it helps me pay the rent, and that's it. And I actually made the point when the Albanese government was re-elected, one of the big reasons why Labor will return with an increased majority is because people who rent tend to vote Labor. And what a surprise, in this market of completely unaffordable prices, we've got more renters. Therefore, we've got more people voting Labor. And with this, you would get even more renters, quite possibly, voting Labor because they'll think that a rental supplement is a good thing, even though it's a terrible, terrible thing. Oh, God. So, yeah, in terms of the housing market, again, both in terms of actually buying a house and renting a house, it's still bad news for everyone. Well, not if you're a boomer with 4 properties or whatever it is you've got.
Then fuck you.
Peanuts.
Then fuck you. I'm coming at you with a pillow, motherfucker.
No, I mean, honestly, there is only one way you can solve this, and that is crash the housing market and upset a lot of boomers. And
no
I don't
survivors.
give a shit. So the only way you can do it is basically we have net zero immigration, all right? And yes, that would mean, in the short term anyway, you would crash the housing market, property prices would plummet, but that is exactly what you want. Yes, a lot of boomers will lose out, but a hell of a lot more people will suddenly be able to afford a house again. And rent won't be out of control either.
Because the house that I bought with 3 raspberries and a firm handshake back in 1960 will decrease slightly in value.
Right. No, but even if it's not slight, even if it's a massive reduction, like, good.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care. I mean, okay.
Dude, it would be bloody murder if you fucking wiped out 10 years of growth on the housing market, put it back to 2015 where, like, housing prices were still over the top. Do you know how many fucking, 40, 50 plus year olds would be screaming bloody murder?
Oh, I know. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why neither Labor nor Liberal will actually implement genuine reform, because there are actually more property owners than renters altogether. But, that's going to change very, very soon. But yeah, the fact that there's more property owners means that both sides of politics don't want to upset them. And remember this, I know I've mentioned this before, but Albo and Dutton never ever said that they wanted house prices to go down. They never said that. The only thing they ever promised or said that they were aiming for was that they continue to grow at a smaller rate. That's it. That's all they were ever saying they were going for, was just a smaller rate of growth in housing prices. Okay. Now, just some other stories to, again, just emphasize how bad it's getting. Here in Perth, in East Perth, they're converting the Fraser Suites, which was a hotel, into social housing. So that's 236 social and affordable housing units. So, I mean, anyone who's been in a hotel would know that, hotels don't have, a kitchen or a dining room or anything really. They just have a bedroom and a bathroom, generally.
There's one central kitchen, and it's meant to service everyone.
Is that what they're doing here?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think dude, they'll probably just shut down the fucking kitchen so that because the kitchen utilities would be a fucking nightmare to pay for.
So how the hell would you manage to like cook your dinner and stuff if you lived
Yeah,
here?
that's the neat part. You'd probably use like one of like the little fucking microwaves they have in the room, and you'd just have to go with that.
Oh my god. Well. Anyway, people were protesting this. Like a lot of people who are on like the waiting list to go into social housing, and there's always a long waiting list. And yeah, because here, social housing in Western Australia, like, is actually pretty good by Australian standards because it's usually actually a house, not a unit. But also, they
Mm.
just don't dump you in some like shithole suburb surrounded by other housing, social housing. They actually integrate you into the general population, and that was a very intentional policy, so that you wouldn't have pockets of social affordable housing with, you know, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of criminal activity going on, because that's just what happens when you cluster those people together. You get criminal activity. But that policy, it's been in reverse now because they just want to cram them back into blocks made up of units of apartments. And in this case, it's actually hotel units. So, yeah, talk about going backwards.
Mm.
Now, also up in the Pilbara, the northwest of the country, believe it or not, there is a housing crisis there as well. So they have high housing and rental prices, insurance, and building costs that are all contributing to people renting longer in the Pilbara. Now, I mean, you used to be able to get a
Yeah,
house for a steal in the Pilbara.
you used to be able to
Go on.
destroy houses over and over and over again, and get away with it in the Pilbara.
Yeah, and the government would just keep building it back up for you.
Well, yeah, I can understand like insurances and building costs. I mean, we all know why that's the case, but yeah, the total cost, like that's kind of fucking horrific. I was
Yeah.
about to suggest we ship all these Indians out to the Pilbara so they can suffer.
Oh, if only, if only. Now, over in Queensland, the Townsville City Council has just increased minimum commercial and heavy industry rates by 50%. Now, that follows a 42% increase in industrial land value and a 22% increase in commercial land value. Uh, so you can only imagine what that's going to do to prices in Townsville. Okay, last story. This was the one I thought was the best, actually. So in West Sydney, Sydney's inner west, there's this residential zone that is just packed with apartments. So high rise blocks. And in amongst all of these, there was like one house that somehow had survived all of the redevelopment that had gone on in that area of West Sydney for decades. So you probably had some grumpy curmudgeon who was just holding on to it because they could. Anyway, finally, that one little house has actually been sold. And I had a look at it. It was actually a pretty ordinary sized house and actually on a pretty small block of land. It basically had no backyard. Anyway, you want to know how much this one house sold for in this zone? $8.15 million
Fuck.
for one small house in Western Sydney. 8.15 million, simply because of the fact that it's in amongst this area of high rises. So yeah, finally got it. All right, let's move on to industrial relations. Uh, this may have actually gone into action already because I read this story last week, but teachers in Queensland are considering going on strike, or maybe they have already, and that is almost 50,000.
Ooh.
So 48,000 members of the Teachers Union, Queensland Teachers Union.
So
And
between their random taking days off and their maternity leave and etc., we're just gonna add some extra on top. All right.
yeah, look, I mean, I'm harsh on teachers just really because of one fact. No, two things. One, you guys get 13 weeks of holiday a year, so you have you just cannot bitch about that. That is luxury in terms of holidays. But also, you guys do 6.5 hour days. So if you're going to complain to me about marking, do you really want to tell me, like, if you did a proper 8 hour day, that an hour and a half every day of the week is not enough to do your marking and your lesson prep? No, I don't. I just don't buy that. But that's not to say you don't deserve a good wage. Okay, just in terms of your hourly wage, of course, you deserve to be paid well. And the teachers are actually one of the few unions out there who are still willing to go on strike. Like them, construction workers and nurses, I guess. They're some of the ones most willing to actually go out and do a real strike. So I guess I kind of commend you for that. But as of now, the LNP government in Queensland is holding firm. They're not budging in terms of wages and conditions. So more to it on that. Okay, so still in Queensland, the LNP has claimed that just recently the CFMEU has cost taxpayers $22 million. And this is to do with deliberate delays to projects. So this isn't, they're saying it's not just because of like industrial costs due to strikes and other industrial action and that kind of thing. It's also to do with the hiring of security and extra police resources that they have to call in to, deal with the union thugs and the picket lines that they've been forming. So I guess it's interesting that, the CFMEU across the country is, has been nationalised. It's been taken over by the government. Yet they're obviously still able to exercise a degree of autonomy here, considering they're still taking part in industrial action. And they've still got the Queensland government going crazy over all of this. I should add that, these are government projects as well. Yeah, this is infrastructure mainly in Brisbane, where you've got contracts with the CFMEU. And if you don't adhere to that contract, to that EBA, by the absolute letter, well, the CFMEU are very happy to go on strike. I think one of their slogans is, "If provoked, we will strike." Strike, obviously, having a double entendre.
Double meaning, yes.
Yes. Okay, now, back here in WA, the Maritime Union, the MUA, has actually attacked part of the AUKUS agreement. Now, this is to do with plans to relocate WA's main container port, which is in Fremantle. That's why we've got a team called the Dockers, the Fremantle Dockers. We're named after our wharfies. But they want to move it to a fully automated facility in Kwinana that actually has significant Chinese influence.
Oh,
and
fuck.
As we know, the Chinese they're the masters of the fully automated ports, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like,
they got the robo cranes.
Yeah, like it looks like a game of Minecraft or something, and there's no people around. It's just a whole bunch of logistics with no humans. Now, the head of the MUA here in WA, his name is Will Tracy, and if you thought that this guy was just some empty-headed bogan union thug, I just wanted to read what he said about this. He said, "The geostrategic context is evolving rapidly and we need to adjust to new realities. It was never a good idea, but it is definitely a bad idea in the current context. In this era of heightened geostrategic tensions, when our Chinese friends conducted live fire exercises, a drop punt from the port, there are serious national security issues relating to an automated port of this type. Automation opens us up to cybersecurity, modern espionage, and choke point concerns. So I was just very impressed.
Any significantly advanced fucking logistics system is completely and utterly open to being fucked with by a cyber attack. And yeah, it would cripple. You could possibly take, obviously you'd need to know the exact nature of what's being used there, but it possibly could be weeks or months worth of it getting shitted up.
Right. Now, I mean, obviously, while he does make a good point there about cybersecurity risks and all of that, obviously, though, the main thing that he's concerned about is the fact that, well, if you move to a fully automated port, well, you sack everyone. All the members who actually have these jobs in the port in Fremantle, most of them anyway, will find that their position is automated on the port in Kwinana. So, yeah, I mean, he's obviously just looking after the interests of the members there and the fact that they just simply won't have a job. But yeah, I was surprised he was able to put that so articulately. Okay. All right, let's move on to welfare. So, talking about the Greens again, their spokesman on welfare or social services, Penny Allman Payne, they've all got bloody hyphenated names in the Greens.
Yep.
So, she's urging Tanya Plibersek, who is now the Social Services Minister, to waive historic welfare debts. So, these were the debts that were calculated during the unlawful income apportionment calculation method. To give you a much more familiar term, robo-debt, if we remember robo-debt. Basically,
someone did not program the algorithm correctly, and people ended up killing themselves, unfortunately. Kind of bad.
There were suicides reported, yes, because some of these debts were calculated incorrectly, and they were asking Centrelink beneficiaries to pay back these enormous amounts that they obviously were in no position to pay back. Now, believe it or not, that is actually still going. Despite the fact that we had a royal commission into this that, yes, uncovered things like those suicides, there's still actually some people who are listed as still owing. Now, I'm sure a lot of those people are owing, I mean, this does happen. People, take in more than they're actually entitled to. But, I doubt very much that this would make up much of the budget. It never makes up as much as things like military spending, for example.
No.
So, little pissy welfare concerns like this, I think they should have the same attitude that they do with student debt. Student debt, they are actually reducing that by 20%. They're said to be making good on that now that Parliament has resumed. And by the way, that's not just HECS. It's also like TAFE debts and other stuff, college debts, that kind of thing. It doesn't actually make up that much of the budget. And if you reduce it or even write it off, it still is not a big thing. So I would just say, yeah, why are you still holding on to all this stuff? Just bloody dump it. Move on.
Yep.
I agree with the Greens. Can you believe it? Okay. All right, well, let's talk about the prickly issue of childcare. Now, we've got other stories now. So not just that bloody perverted homosexual, I forget his name now, but, the guy who was up for 70 charges to do with his time in Melbourne. Sorry?
I think his full name is Wood Chipperfield.
Well, yeah, sure, we can go with that. But now we've got unfortunately, some allegations coming from Queensland. So they've got a 21-year-old man who was charged with indecent treatment of a 4-year-old at a Brisbane childcare centre. And then another man who was actually already a convicted child sex offender. He's had to face court because he was doing maintenance and gardening work at a Queensland childcare centre.
How the fuck does that happen?
Right. So obviously, being on the register, he is not allowed near a childcare centre. Of course, that would be a condition. But he ended up working there. And the reason why is because the director of that particular childcare centre is his wife. That's right.
Oh.
This woman, who is a director of a Queensland childcare centre, is married to a convicted child sex offender. So yeah, as we can see,
fucker, there's a cascade of failures right there. Holy shit!
Yes. So it's like, where do you begin with this? To say that there's a failure of regulation is definitely an understatement. How stuff like this is able to occur. Now, interestingly, I heard commentary on this where there was talk of banning men from childcare because it's been pointed out that basically all of these allegations that have been coming forward have been to do with men. Now, I'll just quickly go through the next story we have because this actually found 2 women who were guilty of abusing children. A 42-year-old woman and a 32-year-old woman. However, it must be pointed out here that their abuse was physical. They assaulted the children rather than sexually assaulted them. Now, on the issue of men, pointing out that, men are the ones who have been guilty of the sexual crimes here. Yes, absolutely true. But what kind of men? Why is it? It's actually okay to have this discussion just about men as a whole, because remember, men are not a victim group. They're not a minority in deservance of special treatment. So they're okay. You can attack them just like you can broadly attack white people. But you can't attack homosexual men, can you? So that has been completely left out of the conversation. Now, we talked about this on the Race Alive as well, I think. I'll just reiterate what I have for years now, which is homosexuals should be ineligible for a working with children's check. And, I would still be actually open to the idea of banning men from childcare. I do kind of find it a bit, I would
odd.
be suspicious.
It's a bit odd.
If you're a bloke who wants to work in childcare, I got to say, that is a bit weird. Nothing wrong with being a guy who likes working with children or who just likes children. That's a good thing. But yeah, if you want to make a career out of it, I got to say that's a little suspect. But I would also just say that if you simply just eliminated the homosexual men, that would be like problem solved, because like heterosexual men basically just don't commit crimes like this. They just don't.
Yeah. I'll still go with the banning men thing just as a fucking catch-all. But, yeah, no, again, like, you're kidding yourself if you don't realize this is like a very, very sexuality-based problem we've got going on here.
Yes. Okay, and the last thing I got here was you've got richer parents. Instead of going through childcare services, they hire nannies, private nannies.
Yep.
And now they're pushing for the government to give them the same kind of subsidies. Well,
I don't think you're in the deserving class there.
No. I mean, it's kind of like where, the government will fund a public school, but if you want to send your kid to a private school, well, that's up to you. You've got to fork out that extra money. I basically see it the same way here. if you want that upgrade, if you want to go from childcare to private nannies, I don't see why you should go to the taxpayer for that. That's your own concern. So yeah, I think I agree. Okay. Moving on to immigration. Actually, don't have a hell of a lot under this topic today. But anyway, we remember that ex-immigration minister Andrew Giles had this directive called Directive 99, and that basically said that if you've got a serious criminal in Australia who has had their visa cancelled, but that particular criminal has roots in Australia, like they have, say, family or a job here or something, you're supposed to reinstate that visa. So that was a directive that was given to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, which is now the Administrative Review Tribunal, I think now. They abolished it and replaced it with something. Anyway, it's the ART now. So anyway, they scrapped that directive and they replaced it with Directive 110, which basically meant that community concerns were supposed to outweigh any connection or roots that person may have to Australia. Now, unfortunately, the ART has still not, you could argue, has still not really been following this directive properly. Because here we've got a case of a British man who was convicted of grooming a minor. I don't believe this guy...
What flavor of British man?
No, this is the thing. That's what I thought as well. But they've actually published his name. His name is Michael Leslie Rylands, which does sound like...
I reserve the right to be suspicious in any other future incidents of that.
Well, look, even then, that could still be a Pajit, I mean, they very often take on names like that, so I don't know. But this was one of those cases where he actually came to Australia as a 10-month-old baby, and, he just never bothered to take out citizenship. It's a pretty common thing that happens. But anyway, this guy was caught in a police sting operation, basically, where they pretend to be an underage person on the internet.
I'm not sure if I've talked to you about this. I love how those little, obviously not the police doing it, but amateur hour, where it went from don't worry, buddy, we're going to call the police. When the pedophile figures out they've been trapped, he's like, we're going to call the police. And then that's just evolved into them getting their asses kicked in the middle of Walmart. I love how that's evolved that way.
Yeah, well, also on the Race Alive, remember we went through those vigilante cases that have actually spiked in Australia, where you've got people setting up these pedophiles and bashing them on camera. Not something I recommend, but at the same time, I'm not exactly sympathetic to those people. But anyway, the ART has ruled that this guy should remain in Australia. So they basically said that even though he poses some kind of a risk, that has basically been outweighed by his connections to Australia. The fact that he has friends and family and a job here. And I guess maybe the fact that he, wasn't actually caught in the act. They just kind of set him up in a sting. That doesn't mean much to me. A guy who was willing to procure sex with a minor on the internet is obviously a guy who would be willing to do it again and actually go through with the deed as well. So that to me says that, either Direction 110 is not strong enough, or we've got an activist tribunal here. And or both could be true as well.
Honestly, I'd like to send him back to the UK, and because obviously he'll reoffend. People like this always reoffend, and when they catch him in the UK, I wonder if they'll charge him the same way that they charge the was it the BAME defendants over there.
Okay, so on the topic of refugees, so remember there was the High Court ruling finding indefinite detention in immigration detention as illegal in Australia. Labor responded to that by having most of these people deported to Nauru. Now, a Kenyan man who was he was in indefinite detention over a puppy scam. I'm not really sure what those involve. I suppose, I don't know, selling you puppies and then not giving you the puppy. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
But anyway,
my fucking ex's mom fell for this because she was a dipshit. It's when they'll list like, oh look, you know, if you pay this much, you know, you'll get like a down thing on like the next litter, and it's like a really cheap relative to market price. So it's like, oh yeah, you know, it's a dog that normally goes for like $5,000, but you know, we'll give you this one for $1,000. And then basically like you pay the down payment for this, and it's got, normally they steal the address of an actual kennel.
right.
And then they just up and disappear with the money.
And I assume this is like Africans like doing this.
Oh yeah, fucking probably. Who fucking knows? You could do this anywhere in the world. You literally just search up like the address of a kennel, make a listing, collect payment, and then delete everything and disappear.
Okay. Well, look, this guy was set to be deported to Nauru, but he took it to the ART, and the ART has ruled that he should be granted a protection visa instead. Now, the reason for this is because he is bisexual, and as a bisexual man, he would be persecuted if he lived in Nauru. So, Nauru is said to be a backwards homophobic country. So, that's the excuse they use. But, you know, that seems to be the excuse that a lot of them use because it works.
Yep.
Like protection visas I know have been issued to Iranian men as well who are either gay or bisexual because they say they face persecution in Iran. So
I remember that one. There was this one woman doing street interviews, and she fucking idiotically was just like, oh yeah, like you know what, like, so like, what's your story? Da 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 da. Is like, this African dude was like, I migrate to UK because I'm gay, and gay is persecuted in where I come from in Africa. And then literally like within the next few fucking lines of conversation, he's trying to ask her out. It's like, oh, you want to go get a drink, huh? It's just like, yeah, okay.
I was just about to say, yeah, we have no way of knowing that this guy is actually bisexual, nor any of those Iranians that I mentioned. It's common knowledge. I mean, these people know the excuses that you can use, the arguments that you can make in front of the tribunal that are more likely to get you a protection visa and stop you from getting deported. It's common knowledge.
Yep.
So, yeah, why wouldn't you use it? Now, last story, I found this one just sort of amusing. There's actually an immigration detention centre in Melbourne, and they reckon that like some kind of organised crime king has basically taken it over. So they said that this detention centre is plagued with rapes, hard drugs, and bashings. And the guy who's running all of this, he was like some drug lord who's in detention there now, and he apparently regularly brings in hard drugs such as heroin, methamphetamine, and ketamine. And he has like his own little business running there. Now, apparently, he has corrupted the security guards. And you know who does security in this
Lebanese.
Well, yeah, but specifically the company, Serco. Serco's the private security company that has various contracts throughout Australia. So, you know, this is a very much privatized system that they're running here. These aren't like, you know, prison guards hired by the government. This is Serco. And there's been rumors that they have been giving him special treatment, which includes exempting him from things like strip searches and pat-downs. Interesting.
So is it because he gives them kickbacks in either hard cash
Well,
or drugs or both?
Well, that seems to be like what they're suggesting here, is that he's got these guards in his pocket. So, yeah, he's basically just paying them off for special treatment. And as a result, he's able to keep bringing drugs in and selling them. All right, let's move on to climate and energy. And oh, wow, we have a very inspiring story to kick this off. So, Western Australia's Aboriginal leaders are looking to Canada's Indigenous leaders and their initiatives for decarbonisation of the economy. So you've got this ANU professor, Peter Yu, obviously not Indigenous, saying that reform is needed to level the playing field for future generations in Australia. So apparently there are Indigenous-led renewable energy projects being run in Canada by their, native Canadians, or I don't know what the hell they call them. They're basically the same as like Native Americans, aren't they? The
Squaws.
Indigenous. Yeah, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the details on this, but I would say that this is kind of like one of those scams where you've got Native Americans involved in gambling or in the selling of white goods, that kind of thing. And the reason why we don't have something similar in Australia is because our natives aren't as smart. Okay, that's the basic reason why. I'm not saying Native Americans have like some really, really high IQ or anything, but it's high enough to have enough of them, say, being able to run a casino, or some of them have mixed blood.
They can I'll cut straight at the casinos. The casinos, is run by like Chieftain Gold Rock, to be honest. A lot of them bought their way into those institutions in the 60s. But they're smart enough to run their own scams. Yes. Yeah, there we go. But no, the Native Americans are smart enough to run their own scams and etc. when it comes to this kind of like energy production and in government policy, especially government subsidy policy. The Aboriginals here are not going to be. So it's either going to be incredibly quarter caste or percentage caste Aborigines, or, and this is what I'll be suggesting, someone's going to be receiving some nice handfuls of cash, taxpayer cash, out of this.
Yeah, so it'll just be another rort. If they're talking about actually importing this to Australia and running a similar thing, it's basically just going to be yet another financial rort that the Indigenous lobby gets in on. And remember, it is, like Nolsey said, like these half-quarter caste or even like 1/8. And sometimes they're just not Aboriginal at all. They're like a Bruce Pascoe type, who is just identifying as Aboriginal so they can get in on the scam. So even though this story is from the ABC, they found this such an inspiring story, and how, well, wouldn't it be great if Aborigines in WA did this? No, you're just talking about another tax rort. That's all it is. And it's not going to do anything to lift living standards of Aborigines in the Pilbara or anything. Okay. Oh, okay. So, talking about Torres Strait Islanders. So, the Guda Maluliga traditional owners.
I'm not going to fucking make an attempt on that.
Okay, so look, this was a Torres Strait Islander group, not Aborigines. The other type of Indigenous we have in Australia.
Yep.
So look, I believe they lost a case here. This was a climate litigation case. And it says that without urgent action, they are likely to become climate refugees. Now, look, if you don't know, the Torres Strait Islanders are in like the northeast of Australia, and they kind of make the same claims that Pacific Islanders do, which is that rising sea levels is going to drown them all, and their homelands are just going to be submerged by water. And they use this as a way of getting taxpayer dollars out of the government, because they say that they need to be able to fund infrastructure. Like this allows me to use the word dike appropriately,
Yes.
so that you can stop flooding. But if you look at, say, like all the Pacific Islands who have been in on this for decades now, for some reason they never use that money to build any of those dikes or any of that infrastructure to protect them from flooding. So I have no doubt that that's probably what was going on here, that they will refuse that money because, one thing, they didn't think they were going to use it to build that infrastructure, but also because the idea that, they're going to be submerged in water, next year is just ridiculous. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, again, it's just a shit test. It's basically like it's either a mix of, well, if we're being honest, it's pay me off so I don't join China in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But in this case, this is probably just fucking corruption.
Right. And I mean, that's actually why didn't the Solomon Islands actually go with China, because we didn't give them a good enough deal. So yeah, I mean, that shows that that's a very real prospect. If we don't bribe these countries good enough, China will get in on the action instead. It's a bit different though. I mean, these people are actually part of Australia, so the Chinese don't have the same kind of negotiation power as they would. Anyway, here's another project failure to laugh at. So, Blue Float Energy, they were set to construct an offshore wind farm in Victoria, and they have just pulled out of the market completely, saying that the project is no longer commercially viable. God knows how many hydrogen projects have either been shut down or never started, or whatever. We've gone through countless amounts of them.
Andrew Forrest has still got his dick hard about the green hydrogen projects. But the thing is, it's and I said this at the time, and now it's played out to be true. The green hydrogen is gone. The blue hydrogen is now having its funding slowly and steadily stripped.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, look, this is always made with the point that Australia is not on track to meet its renewable energy targets. Sure, that's true. But of course, with every one of these projects that keeps going under, it makes it even harder to meet those targets. And I've no doubt we will not meet those targets because they're completely utopian. They're just unfeasible. They can't be done. Okay, so Dr. Ken Henry. So this is the guy who is the former Treasury Secretary. But he's saying that environmental degradation in Australia has reached crisis point, and that we need to hold back economic growth as a result. Now, he did mention renewable energy targets, unsurprisingly.
Yeah,
but he's actually talking about just general degradation of the environment in Australia. I would disagree with that. Things like coral bleaching in the Great Barrier Reef are largely a myth, and just generally, I think we have a pretty good balance in Australia regarding native forests and parks, areas where you're not allowed to develop and everything. I think we've actually got a pretty good balance here.
Our conservation programs are some of the best in the entire world.
Yeah, and I'll even somewhat give credit to Tanya Plibersek, who was not Environment Minister anymore, but she just finished a 3-year term as that. And, I don't really have any big complaints with her. And this is actually pretty much a bipartisan issue, like the environmental policies. And here I'm not talking about green energy, remember. I'm just talking about general environmental sustainability. Both sides of politics are basically bipartisan on this, and dare I say, this is one of the areas of good governance in Australia, something that we actually do quite well. Right, now, on the renewable energy targets, so remember, we're aiming for, an 82% reduction by 2035. Good luck getting there. I found two stories on this I found very interesting. Now, the first one, Australia's biggest business lobby. So this is the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They are saying that they actually support a Gillard-style carbon price.
Oh, fuck.
So the carbon tax, bringing that back.
It's back.
Now, I'll probably leave some of this commentary to you, Nolsey, but like the first story, though, that I read on this was that the union, the ACTU, was calling on this. Now, that's not so surprising. The union movement siding with the environmental left, even though that can be bad for blue-collar workers, nonetheless, it still is something that these peak union bodies do. But the Australian Chamber of Commerce, remember, were absolutely gung-ho opposed to the carbon price back in 2010, as was just the business sector universally back then. But now you've got this odd situation. And then the other one was Rio Tinto. They're also backing a carbon price. So, Nolsey, why is Rio Tinto, Chamber of Commerce, and the ACTU? Like, do you have a theory here as to why all of them are calling for the return of the carbon tax?
Rio Tinto's main shtick is, even though they are a mining company, they're also an assaying company as well. So I think that they plan on basically just using this as a padding of the bills, and they can also put that down to their clients. So like a lot of instances, Rio Tinto doesn't even own the mine that they're mining out of. They're literally just collecting and assaying. Just that's one of the big differences between Rio Tinto and the other big three. In terms of Chamber of Commerce, dude, a deal's been signed somewhere.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think they figured out a way to make this profitable for them. An extra cost in a system can be turned into a profit, especially if you're setting up industries and businesses that will help you mitigate it as a service, or help you market why the fuck the price of everything's going up to your customers or clients.
Yeah. And I mean, there was definitely a point in time where the business sector at large were opposed to the phasing out of coal. Now, even the biggest energy companies, like, Andrew Forrest will tell you that we need to phase out coal. And the reason why is because the environmental landscape has changed in that it's now profitable for these companies to support such measures because of subsidies and regulation and whatever else that the government is offering.
Yeah. And it's normally also because they've gotten into the industry. They've invested into the companies and industries that will be taking charge of that change. That was the biggest difference. I mean, if you wound the clock back to the 1970s and you went into an institution, you're talking about climate change, you're talking about global warming, hell, you're talking about oil being scarce, you had been called a fucking kook. Then, lo and behold, globally, a lot of these large companies and large lobbying groups invested in it, or at least their clients invested in it, and it is gospel in every university around the world.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I guess when I read these stories this week, that made me think, okay, like maybe a carbon tax is actually going to be back on the agenda, even though voters are not asking for it. Big, powerful lobby groups are. And they obviously have a much bigger sway over government than the average voter. So, yeah, we could well be seeing it. Okay. Now, at the same time, the Greens are unhappy because there are some bailout plans being finalised for 3 smelters in Australia. So, our only magnesium smelter, also Hobart Zinc, and Port Pirie lead smelters. It's a $135 million package for the 3, and that's because they have been running at a loss for the past I don't know, few months or few years. So the Greens hate this because this is, like propping up dirty industry that we're supposed to just let die. But yeah, it is showing that, even Labor are not willing to go completely balls out with this kind of stuff because we need it.
Yeah, look, the Labor was a transcendent at this point. I can't remember the exact word at the moment, but like, they don't want to jeopardize that. They want to hold on to that for as long as possible, and they know that this would piss off the Australian public.
Right, and that's why they're willing to prop up the gas sector as well, because you still need some kind of fossil fuel to manage the transition into green energy, and gas is obviously the most reliable one. If we were doing actually what the Greens wanted, letting these smelters die, and letting like gas go into short supply as well, we'd have fucking blackouts the way South Africa does. So, Labor aren't quite that extreme. They're not going to let it get to that level. All right. Now, so Rio Tinto, back to them, is they're talking about significant pressure on market and price dynamics that could lead to further industry closures and shortfalls. Now, what they're blaming here is the short supply of carbon credits. Now, remember, this is basically the carbon tax by stealth. So, I said we're going to get the carbon tax again. I should have said, we've actually basically already got it through like the safeguard mechanism and carbon credits and stuff.
But we're getting double loads.
Yeah, we would be adding to it if that would happen. But anyway, short story is like big polluters need to have carbon credits to be able to pollute a certain or emit a certain amount of carbon. Once you've run out of those credits, you've either got to stop your emissions or you've got to buy more. So they're saying that there is basically a short supply of them. There's not enough to buy. So Rio Tinto is saying that they basically need to add more carbon credits to the market because they're just being squeezed too much at the moment.
Oh, God, that's what we need, another fucking speculative currency that industries can trade with each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I love how they say, oh, no, that's just the market mechanism. That's the market-based approach, rather than the government interventionist approach. It's a market mechanism instead. It's like, no, it's an artificial asset that the government creates. What are you talking about? There's anything resembling a free market in that respect. Yes, it's bought and traded, but it's an artificial asset. That's not a free market. Okay. Here in WA, Synergy actually overcharged almost 3,000 people who were on Centrelink. And the bill actually totals $2.29 million. Now, this was to do with the fact that people on Centrelink were supposed to get extra assistance. And basically, Synergy weren't applying that discount to their account and overcharging them. And this goes back years, actually. It goes all the way back to 2009. So,
Jesus.
Well, some of those people would be dead by now, Okay. Okay, last story. You might be surprised to know that Australia has a dwindling owl population. And
Shit.
the reason for this is being put down to the use of rat and mouse poison. Of course, owls hunt rats and mice,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, sometimes they manage to get a rat or a mouse that has been poisoned, and thus they get themselves poisoned and die.
I
Um,
guess the diuretic poison that they use on mice and rodents, I guess that would also affect avians. So yeah.
yeah, well, no, it's indisputable. There's been a lot of study on this done, and environmental groups are basically like pleading with people, like don't use this stuff, like set a trap or something instead. Um, yeah, I'd also say like uh, it's even dangerous for like cats. I mean, because
Cats,
cats hunt.
cats, dogs, small children.
Yes, small children even can pick up these pellets and eat them. So yeah, it's not just owls we're talking about. So yeah, if you can deal with the problem another way by using traps or whatever it might be,
Well,
you
that's
should
that's the
do that.
problem with mammals because like generally something, and obviously owls aren't mammals, but like generally something that can kill a mammal can also kill all of other shit too, including most other mammals.
Yes. So including humans. So
Yes. You kind of have to be a
yeah,
small human for like any normal dose of rat poison to kill you.
right.
But there's stuff, the stuff back in the day, like the stuff that we use, like the rat sack, rat sick, whatever the fuck. You stuff you get at Bunnings. That's the newer stuff where like you need like a reasonably high dose per like kilogram body weight. The rat poison back in the day, the fucking like heavy metal based rat poison, fuck me, that stuff was real deadly. But yeah, I don't think there's going to be a poison alternative that we're going to be able to find.
That would like only kill the rodents, but not the owl. You
Yeah,
mean? Right.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if you can avoid using those poisons, yeah, do that. All right. Let's move on to the topic of drugs. Now we're talking about vapes here. Of course, we've got a far more restricted vape market in Australia. So ever since they were banned last year, authorities have actually seized over 10 million vapes. So yeah, there you go. That means there's a fair black market trade of it that they'll never be able to entirely stop. Um, but we are finding that these new restrictions have worked to an extent because people aged between 14 and 24, they're now showing lower rates of vaping. And, like you're so much more likely to see, like, say, some 15-year-old outside of McDonald's
Mm.
vaping than you are smoking. Certainly, from my own observations, I've noticed that because there is sort of like a perception out there that vaping is not as bad as smoking. Vaping is a relatively new trend, so we don't know the exact effects of literally putting vapor on your lungs. But I would say that
Yeah,
that is not a
fucking Christ, the girlfriend's younger sister's vape. The youngest one vapes. She's like 21 or something. Or no, she's 19. And she vapes, and then her second younger sister, who's 24, doesn't vape, but only because she's pregnant. And I was even talking to like her partner about that. Apparently, she was just chucking hissy fits like in the early stages of pregnancy, and I was just like, "Well, wait until you get to the later stages of pregnancy. Hissy fits just become the norm."
yeah. So and you shouldn't need to turn to like vaping or smoking or something to deal with that. That's just called a pregnancy, and you've got to deal with
Yes.
it. But yeah, look, I would say by and large, I support this. Even I was sort of alarmed by like when vaping first took off, there was basically this universal idea that it was harmless. And even the guys at TRS, do you remember they had their
Yes, they
vaping
did.
phase? they were all vaping on camera.
I
Even that, I was
did
like, "God, what are
too,
you
to
doing?"
get off cigarettes, and then that worked, and then I stopped.
Well, at least you stopped. And the TRS guy stopped as well,
Yes.
thankfully. Yeah. Oh, okay. Now, here's a story. This one actually broke while we were on break. And that is that GPs, your local doctor, is now able to diagnose patients with ADHD and also prescribe the medication. Now, I have real mixed feelings on this. I think generally I'm opposed to it, but the reason I say I'm mixed on it is because, look, I do actually think ADHD is a real thing. I do believe that some people do need medication to treat it. And the unfortunate thing is, very often you have to go to a psychiatrist, and psychiatry in Australia is basically completely privatized, and they charge enormously high, like hourly rates. So, uh, like particularly, like if you're an adult who wants to get diagnosed with ADHD, you've got to spend like, I believe, thousands of dollars to get that diagnosis. Now, at the same time, I just think it's too easy for GPs to do so many things. Like, all right, they're a general practitioner, but they're
Yeah.
not a general psychologist or a general psychiatrist because they
Child
already prescribe.
behaviorist or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, because they can diagnose depression and anxiety and prescribe SSRIs and other medication for that kind of stuff. And it's like, is this really within the ambit of being a doctor? Like, they're
Look,
supposed to deal with your physical health, not with the mental health.
yeah, the idea was you went to a GP, and if the issue that the GP saw was something very mundane, maybe they would treat you for it there and there. But if it was something specialized, you'd get a referral. That's the entire point of getting a referral. That's what was meant to happen, but yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, they would do that. They would give you a referral for the psychiatrist, but like I said, you had got to pay like these enormously high costs
Yeah.
to see a psychiatrist because there's basically no such thing as the only like public psychiatrist you're going to find works at a nut house. There's not one that like deals with individual patients. They're all private.
You.
So, all right. So, just turning to state politics. Just a quick story in Queensland. The LNP, in the lead up to the last election, there was a particular tax that they opposed, and this was an insurance duty. So this is basically a tax on people who have like high premium insurance policies. So in other words, it's a rich tax. They're going after people who pay high premiums and saying, "Hey, do you want to pay a bit more in the form of tax?" The LNP was supposed to abolish that, but it's just been revealed that in their next budget, they're actually taking $1.78 billion from that very tax that they were supposed to oppose. So, yeah, what's going on, guys? Why haven't you gotten rid of that? In Victoria, the ALP, one of their flagship projects is the suburban rail loop, which, of course, is already massively over budget and over time. But now just adding to that, they have just hired 50 staff who are tasked with communications and engagement. In other words, they're basically propaganda bureaucrats. They're spin doctors. It's their job to sell this project to the Victorian public and assure them that everything is okay. And that alone is costing them $7.4 million a year. And it means that out of these 49 staff, an executive general manager would be earning between $400,000 and $557,000 annually. Wow. And that average salary would be $147,000 a person. So even if you're on the lower rung there, you're earning a pretty handsome wage. or salary. Okay. So to the Federal Liberal Party, believe it or not, we've still got some leftover election news. So the seat of Bradfield, which is in Sydney's inner north, that officially has gone to the Teal Independent Nicolette Boel. However, the Liberal parties are going to be contesting this. So they've actually just lodged a dispute in court. And I'm not surprised because do you know how many votes this Teal Independent won by? 24. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a seat with such a low margin as that. 24 votes. So,
oh my god, you could ask for a fucking recount at that point, and they probably should.
Well, I need to point out though that there was actually a recount in June. I'm not sure if the vote count was the same, but both counts did find that this Teal candidate won. But under the recount that was done in June, they're saying that she won it by only 24 votes. So, yeah, not surprising that the Libs are going to contest that. Okay, let's go to the Greens. We're talking federal Greens here. Now, just to give you a bit of quick history on the founding of the Greens, we mentioned before that they were founded strictly as an environmental party in Tasmania. It kind of came after, the logging of old-growth forests in Tasmania, and there's still a big, kind of hippie environmental movement that still exists in Tasmania surrounding all of that.
There is.
But anyway, God, why? It was actually founded by Bob Brown, of course, but also a guy that a lot of us have forgotten, whose name is Drew Hutton. Now, Drew Hutton, despite being a co-founder of the party, has just been expelled by their new leader, Larissa Waters. Now, let me just read out some quotes here, and this might give you an idea of why he was expelled. He said, "Let's have an inquiry into how the party is embedding democratic values into the processes the party pursues and who these people who have taken over the party and what's their real agenda. I fought 20 years against..."
He's talking against the party line.
Yes. So he said, "I fought 20 years against the Bjelke-Petersen government in this state to have freedom of speech, and we won in the end. But now find I'm on the losing end in my own party on that same issue. It's a different Greens party to what it was when I founded it. It's been taken over by a cult, basically. It's a transgender cult or a queer cult." He made some other comments basically saying that the party's policies on transgender people are too extreme. Now, I'm not sure exactly what he was talking about. Maybe he was talking about, the treatment of children with puberty blockers and that kind of thing. But yeah, it does show that, look, the Greens of the 90s, he founded the party back in 1992. Of course, they did always have a social agenda. It wasn't just environmental. So they did talk about gay rights and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't front and center, and it also wasn't as extreme. Yes, they would have supported gay marriage, but they would not have, say, supported the mutilation of children's genitals or putting them on puberty blockers.
These were legacy gay, not fucking, not contemporary gay.
Yeah. So, believe it or not, even those green activists back then were not quite as extreme as what you've got today. And now we've got a case where one of these veterans of the party and a co-founder of the party has actually been expelled.
God damn.
Here's what he also said. He said the Greens are rapidly becoming an authoritarian, doctrinaire, unlikable party, and people are waking up to this more and more. Yeah, I mean that's why they lost those seats in the recent federal election. So he's onto something.
Yeah,
Okay, now
unfortunately, he spoke out against the golden calf there. So
right. Okay, now this concerns the Greens at the council level in Sydney. Anyway, they had an elected councillor whose name is Tina. Oh God, Cord Rostami. Kind of sounds Italian, but she is Iranian. Iranian born, actually, but raised in Sydney. And she's gone independent now. And funnily enough, it's because of the Greens' refusal to publicly condemn Hamas and the Iranian government.
oh god,
So,
she's one of those Iranians.
yes. So, even though she is of Middle Eastern extraction, is a Muslim, and a Greens member, uh, she is saying that the Greens have gone too extreme in terms of terrorist sympathies. So I'm reading the story from The Australian, of course. They
Yeah.
loved reporting this. They love to take an opportunity saying, oh, look, see, like they're even too extreme for some greeny Iranian woman. Now, she does make the point that she's still pro-Palestine. Like, that position, she meets the party line. But she says it's another thing to not condemn Hamas or Hezbollah or the Iranian regime.
Yeah, I was gonna say, check her butthole. There's probably a rabbi's hand up there.
Probably. Got my stories slightly out of order here. I've got another one referring back to the Federal Liberal Party. But just quickly, I'm just going to click on this and read the numbers here. It's just showing that Susan Lee's approval rating is very, very low. There's nothing surprising about this. Being a new leader, having come in just after Labor won a bigger majority. So at the moment, who do you think would make better Prime Minister? 52% say Albanese, 32% say Susan Lee, and 16% say uncommitted. The primary vote of the coalition has also gone down. They're sitting at 29%. Labor is on 36%. Yeah, and look, this has caused some people to also just say that the Liberal Party is dead. I don't ever believe that kind of thing. Yes, they have been reduced in numbers. I would say that like their long-term prospects probably are less than what they have been historically, considering that the conservative side of politics has basically been in government in Australia about 2/3 of the time. Even though Labor is the longest existing major party in Australia, the Liberal Party has actually held government a lot longer than Labor. However, getting back to a point I made earlier in the show, simply because of the fact that we have more renters in Australia and that number is only set to increase, that is something that the Liberals should be very worried about. That's going to continue to yield dividends for Labor.
Look, the Liberal Party could come back as long as they're like saying like, okay, we're going to revitalize the economy. We're going to, streamline the construction and expansion of businesses and etc. And that's simply because the Liberal Party exists in Australia because Australia, when you boil it down to its core, is a venture capitalist interest. That's what it was. That's what Perth was. That's what the ACT was. That's what New South Wales was. That's what Victoria was. It's like this place was designed to make people money, unfortunately. And that can be changed in the future, but yeah.
I mean, so was America.
Yeah.
If you listen to, back when Fash the Nation were doing those episodes on American history, they talked a lot about how America was essentially founded as a market. And yeah, I mean, I definitely don't believe the Liberal Party is dead. I think that they will hold government less now due to those factors I mentioned. But I also kind of predict that Australia will go the way of America in that, in America, they only, like each government only is in power for one term. It's the Republicans for one term, then it's the Democrats, then it's back to the Republicans again. I think we might end up in a situation like that in Australia. And the reason why is very simple. It's not going to get any better here. We're going to go from one crisis to another, and the reflexive reaction of voters is to simply blame whichever government is in power at the time. If there's a crisis, you blame it on whichever party is in power. So you vote them out, you vote in the new government, then there's another crisis, and then you vote them out. And you just keep going in circles.
Not that I would be happy about it, but it's there's situations in the near future where the Liberal Party could become ascendant.
Of course, yeah. No, they're not dead yet. They're not dead. Okay, quick bit of Aboriginal news. Federal Labor is talking about auditing the Northern Territory's spending on Indigenous affairs. Why, you may ask? Well, because of the fact that they are allocated so much Commonwealth money to see no results. So when it comes to, closing the gap in terms of education, literacy rates, and health and life expectancy and everything like that, those metrics basically never improve. But also because of the fact that much of that money is simply unaccounted for. It's siphoned off. It's people putting the money in their own pocket. And the Northern Territory government is actually quite offended at this because they pointed out, they're a new government. They've only been in power for a little while. And, that followed at least 8 years of Northern Territory Labor being in power, who had the exact same trouble. And I mean, I've said before that my favourite government in Australia at the moment would be the Whanokirari government, the Northern Territory government. But that's basically because of their stance on crime. I think they have actually put in some very good tough on crime measures. But in terms of just Aboriginal policy generally, because remember, obviously, law and order relates to Aborigines very directly. But everything else, they've pretty much, they've just stuck with the status quo in terms of, funding specific Indigenous welfare programs and public housing, all that kind of stuff. So it would not surprise me if, they have just sort of continued the same old cycle of money being funneled to corrupt bureaucrats and, heads of so-called Aboriginal corporations. It's not a surprise that they're skimming all that money.
Well, again, have we actually had an audit into some kind of Aboriginal social program that didn't end up with just the discovery that, oh shit, yeah, by the way, they were fleecing money left, right, and center. Even the fucking funding for the fucking voice campaign. The one done by the NIDO fucking thing or whatever, the big one with the fucking purple signs. Turns out the fucking quarter caste woman in charge of that was literally using it to fucking buy properties.
Yes, I remember. I think Lydia Thorpe, of all people, actually made reference to that.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there's other things to do with Labor Party senators as well, who have been doing such things, misappropriating funds. It doesn't surprise me. So, no, I still would support an audit, even if it does make the Whanokirari government somewhat look bad. But, that audit should definitely go back a lot as well. Make sure you audit the previous Labor government too.
Yes.
And yeah, we have a history of this. I mean, remember ATSIC? Remember that?
Yep.
That Aboriginal group. John Howard abolished ATSIC because they were just corrupt from top to bottom. Okay. So, I'll just skip that. Boring story on the NDIS. We'll just quickly move on to mental health. So probably is going to surprise no one that mental illness is now the main reason for permanent and total disability in Australia. So these are claims, of course, that you can make to insurers. That basically means that you are incapable of working for the rest of your life because of some form of mental illness.
Well, I'm a bit of a fucking crazy person myself.
So it's not a surprise then that when people are making these claims, and this also goes to superannuation funds, so people who want to take their superannuation early, they're dragging their feet over it because they've just got so many of these claims happening now that they're becoming even more reluctant to approve them. Now, obviously, there's a financial incentive there that might be skewing these results somehow. In other words, people are just trying to scan the system. But a lot of them have got to be legitimate as well. And so it's not a very good reflection of our society that we always have these burgeoning rates of mental illness. And because, if you want further evidence, I mean, just look at things like suicide rates or SSRI prescriptions or the fact that those crisis helplines and stuff never get a break and they're always short on staff or volunteers. All of those statistics kind of show that we're in trouble as well. But what do we do
we literally
to deal with it?
multiple fucking years driving people insane. Like, what the fuck do we? What did we expect to get out of that? Everyone's fucking nuts. I was in a room.
Well, I mean, what's our reaction to it though?
2 weeks ago.
The reaction is always just more funding for mental health services. It's like, wow, okay, that's a secondary solution. You're not getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is a breakdown in social capital. And the main driver of that is immigration. But no one will talk about that.
There we go.
All right, so we got a little bit of tech news. And I'm not sure if we've ever discussed video games on this show before. We have? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a little bit of a gamer like me, you'd be familiar with Steam. That's basically the biggest, online platform for gaming. They've actually removed, believe it or not, hundreds of sexually violent games. Now, some examples of what these games allowed you to do was role play rapes, incest, and sexual torture that included of children. So, wow, I remember, I only kind of recently found out that these kind of games existed. To me, a sexually explicit game was Leisure Suit Larry. I don't know if you've ever played that one. That's basically where you go.
Never played it, but I know it's about.
Yeah, I don't think I've played it either, but yeah, you've got to choose pickup lines and stuff to get girls into bed. That's basically the idea of the game. And it's more of just a funny kind of thing to do. But no, there's actually games out there that have horrific, graphic, violent, sexual imagery as well. And there are apparently a lot of these. So, yeah, I guess I say that was a good move by Steam. I was just going to say, what's wrong with you if you play a game like that? Why can't you just play a normal game where you kill people?
You're in the process of pruning out. I'm not even joking, my man. I am not joking.
Okay, I don't know. It's hard for me to fathom. I mean, I'm a gamer on the older side. So when I grew up, it was Mario Brothers and stuff. So the idea of mixing sex with video games just seems really weird to me. But yeah, there's some lobby group in Australia that's known as Collective Shout. And they were the ones actually leading this campaign to have these games banned. So I guess, I don't know if this is a feminist lobby or something like that. Yeah, I mean, when feminists talk about shutting down, like, sexual violent imagery, I'm all for that. Or porn, I'm all for that as well. But you've got a weird version of feminism nowadays where, like, they'll say that pole dancing is empowering or even porn is empowering. And that is just all kinds of fucked up.
Yeah. Yes, porn is empowering the fucking gooned out brains of today.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah. So AI laws. So Meta is currently in the process of, like, training its AI to have intelligence bots that mimic human beings. Now, in order to train that AI, Meta, of course, needs to scrape your details. So they're doing that as we speak. By the way, basically always assume that Meta is undermining your privacy in some form.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they've actually, like, fired warning shots at federal Labor because Labor is planning to introduce new privacy laws that, well, specifically deals with this kind of thing. Gives you some protection against social media companies, like, harvesting your personal details and using it to train AI. So, as we know, Facebook sometimes can spit the dummy and just be completely uncooperative with the government,
Yep.
like when they tried to make them pay for, like, the use of news headlines. Meta actually just scrapped their news section altogether at one point. They just had a dummy spit over that. So you never know what kind of action Meta may take in response to this. But no, we definitely need some revamped privacy laws, I think, so that you don't have, like, an intelligence bot, like, literally mimicking your online behavior.
Yeah, if there's an intelligence bot mimicking my online behavior, it's the most fucking schizoidal motherfucker out there.
Right.
But yeah, no. If you're making an AI model, you need like an absolute shit ton of data, and there's no way you can get that without basically breaching people's privacy.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Okay, so quick story in agriculture. The government is still going full steam ahead with the plan to phase out live uh, industry, live cattle, live sheep, etc. We export this to Middle Eastern countries so that they can, kill them in the halal style, that kind of thing. So we are still on track to phase that out. The government has just given details. It's got a $139.7 million transition fund. This is basically bribe money to farmers.
Yeah.
Particularly here in WA, actually, we've got a huge live industry export. These guys actually go out every now and then on the trucks on the freeway and beat their horns very loud. I've run into a couple of those protests before. I got to say that they're much more considerate than environmental protesters because they will not go during peak hour. They'll go out at, like, say, 11 a.m. or something once peak hour is cleared. So they're actually considerate. They don't want to interrupt, the average person.
Yeah, they don't want to
Which is
fuck up
admirable.
their reputation because they
And
know
they
they're not
don't do
actually government backed.
Yeah, and they don't do shit like super glue their hands to the road or put a bike lock on their head, like locking them to the steering wheel or something. They don't do that kind of shit. Um, but yeah, no, it's going to happen. I don't think there's any signs here that the government's relenting on that, despite protests from the industry. Um, I believe the Liberal Party is opposed to this, but yeah, what good are they at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay. Our M1A1 Abrams tanks have finally arrived in Ukraine. Now, why do I read this out as news? Well, because they were actually gifted to the Ukraine 9 months ago, but they've only just gotten on the ground over there. And what the bloody hell is the point of doing this? Of just contributing to what is a stalemate and is going to inevitably end with Russia winning. And all we're doing by giving them these tanks is just making the conflict go that little bit longer.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous.
But we're just ensuring that like a crew of 4 guys per tank gets like immolated when that thing gets hit with a heat round.
Right, yeah. I mean, what good is it actually going to do? And we gave them all a whopping 49 tanks. And they're probably like already out of commission.
Because you need parts for them. That's one of the guys I knew was a tanker in the ADF. And he's like, look, they're basically all up in the northwest of Perth. And he's like, I think on paper we have like 100 something of them. And he's like, but less than half of them work at any given point in time.
Right.
Oh, and he feels blaming Americans for like just not giving us a surplus of parts with them.
All right. Okay, so we'll end here with the last topic, which is elections. Now, we're just going to quickly talk about the last WA election we had, which was this year, of course. It was 2025. And you might remember that there was a bit of a debacle where they had like a shortage of staff. They didn't have enough ballot papers and stuff to hand out at particular voting stations. Well, the ABC actually just found documents that found that the prior election, the 2021 election, there were also similar concerns. Now, I wasn't actually aware of this, but apparently they had the same problems, but on a much smaller scale. So the WA Electoral Commission was concerned that it was damaging its reputation by those shortfalls that happened in the 2021 election. So they actually responded by outsourcing staff. And that is actually what caused the problems in the 2025 election. So in order to solve the problem, they actually made it worse because it turned out that the outsourced staff were worse.
Oh, boy.
Plus, also, they just simply weren't able to hire enough people as well. So, yeah, there you go. That's a nice, ironic story. And the very last story we've got here is from our Teal Independent for Kooyong, Monique Ryan. So she's the one who turfed out Josh Frydenberg. She's about to introduce a bill into Parliament to lower the voting age to 16. This debate is actually currently going on in the UK. There's a big move in the UK as well to lower it to 16. Now, there's a very simple reason as to why some in politics support this and some don't. And that is this. The younger you are, the more likely you are to vote left, and the older you are, the more likely you are to vote right. So it's not a surprise that the Teals and the Greens, etc., support lowering it to 16, whereas One Nation and the Liberals are not. And this debate actually comes up every few years, and you have the exact same divisions each time. So the fact that a Teal is supporting this is absolutely no surprise. All right. Well, that is us. Thank you for joining us on our little comeback episode. We do plan to get back to regular weekly output. So, what about you, Nolsey? You're still doing Peng?
Yeah. When I get bored, I'll do it when I get bored.
Just sporadically every now and then, not a regular time you can tell people?
No, not really. You need to turn on notifications, my man. Maybe on the weekends, I don't know. When I got time. When I'm, when I'm not busy doing fucking retard shit like I normally am.
Okay, so go check out Peng, which is on Rumble. I think it's Mike Nolsey, isn't it? Your channel?
Yep.
On
just
Rumble.
Mike Nolsey.
Yep. And of course, if you want to get all our other links, you can find us at theracer.biz. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Hashtag never goon.